So for the last few months, people would ask me to make a video on the ParseJSON function for Power Apps. I'm like, why? It's got to be a boring video. It's got to be easy to use. No big deal. And then this week I had to use it. Oh my, that function is, shall we say? So what we're going to do today is we're going to explain how to use this function inside out with both simple JSON and complex JSON, arrays, all types of chaos. We're going to talk about some of those things you see like untyped errors. We're going to talk about tables. We're also going to just teach a little bit of core what is JSON. So if you don't know what it is, you probably need to better understand it, right? Because we know that JSON is part of working with APIs and it has a lot of different places it keeps popping up with Power Apps and Power Automate. So today it's really just about ParseJSON, JSON, and where they fit in with Power Apps. All right, anyway, that's enough of the blah, blah, blah. Let's switch over to my desktop and take a look. Okay, so as promised, we're going to talk about this, but we're going to go as slow as possible, right? So the first thing I really want to do is I'm going to add a gallery. So like so, and I'm going to use this Excel table that I imported, right? We're going to talk about why later I wanted it to be this way, but there's a very specific reason because all I want to focus on right now is the JSON. I don't want to have to like get into a bunch of other weird concepts, but we will get to those weird concepts in a bit, right? Okay, so we're going to pull this. I'm going to click here. I'm going to make this thing really big. I'm going to click the little rectangle here, just change its color so it's very obvious where a line is. All right, and then we're going to change the fields over here, and we're just going to show person name, simple JSON, and then complex JSON. Okay, there's only 3 columns in the field. Also remember, if you're a subscriber over at training.poweraapps901.com, in the YouTube library, you can download this working app, which has got the embedded data source, which was one of the keys I was after. So then that way you can get in there and kind of tinker yourself without, in a non-challenging environment. First off, we have this simple JSON field, and it literally is that, right? Do you see how it's got the cute little curly brackets there? Let's hit play. It says cute little curly brackets, and it's got some text in the middle. So JSON, remember, it's just the hipster way to spell JSON. No, right? JSON stands for something. I don't care what it stands for, but it's text in curly brackets. So we got curly brackets that's kind of saying, hey, this is some JSON. And then we've got simple text. So simple text here, this is a column. It's got double quotes around it so that we know it's a string, but that's the column. So that way, if simple text had space in it or something like that, it wouldn't be a big deal. The colon is saying, hey, this is like the equal sign, right? So it's saying simple text equals hi mom. So in the simple text column, we've got hi mom, right? So that's it. That is JSON about as simple as it can get right there. So that's why I called it simple. We also then have this other one, and so I'm going to pull this down so you can kind of see it all. And I wrote some complex JSON. And yeah, that's right. I wrote all this by hand. It's not that hard once you kind of understand how it works. We'll get rid of the little piece over here. So there's that piece. So to use ParseJSON, we needed JSON. That's why we pull this into the table. So I'm just going to take this one right here. I'm going to copy and paste it. And we're just going to put it down here. We'll probably make it skinnier. And so it is core, right? This is easy, right? You're going to use a function called ParseJSON. And then you just pass it the JSON, which is coming from this item, simple JSON. Now, if you look, we're getting an error. The untyped object argument, blah, 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 right? You get an error pretty quick. I think if we hover here, you probably can see it. The untyped object argument to the text function is incorrect type. Expected text, actual object. So what happens here is that the ParseJSON function, yes, it understands your data, but it returns an untyped object. So it understands how to get your text into formats, but it doesn't know if that a text, a number, a date, time, and it doesn't try to delineate for us. So this is the first thing that makes you shake your hand, right? Now, what you can do is you can do a dot here. So think of ParseJSON as like creating the record of what's there. And so if we look back up here, this was called simple text with a capital S, capital T, right? Case matters. So we're going to do simple text. It will not auto-suggest, unfortunately. Now that works, but when this works, right? So that gets hi mom out of there, yay. But when it works, look over here, data type is an untyped object. So basically this is what Power Apps' way of saying, hey, I think it's text, but I don't really know what you're doing. So I'm not going to guess. So what you want to do anytime that you're going to use ParseJSON is you then need to tell it what type of data it is. So if we said text, like so, so the text function now turns the ParseJSON untyped object into a text type object. So anything, right, that is that text. So whatever you know how to do with text, you could now do. So whether you wanted to save it in a variable, use it in a patch statement, slice and dice it with some, substring type of functions. Right? We don't call them substring in PowerApps, we call them mid. Right? But whatever text manipulation you want to do, that is now just text. It took, what is that, like 3 steps to get there? But that's the way that these things work. So as most core level, that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to take the JSON, right? You parse it, you tell it what field you want out of it, and you tell it what data type. That's your first lesson. That's the easy part, okay? All right, if you're still with me, then you're the type of person that I love, right? You're detail-oriented, you're learning some hard, complex skills. Remember, I've got training classes for all this stuff. Training.poweraapps911.com. I've got the 201 live class I just made like 12 hours of content for. We got live training classes. We got Power Platform University is super popular. So please go check out my training options if you want to learn more in depth and you like my style of, well, I'm slightly crazy. All right, anyway, switch back to the video. Let's go a little harder, right? So if you look down here, you see where it says detail records, blah, 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 right? So this JSON is a little more complicated, right? So starting here, right here, and going all the way to here, that is my complex JSON, right? That is one big chunk of JSON, okay? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take a little side trip here. We're gonna copy that out, and we're going to jump over here, and we're gonna use a website called JSON Beautifier, okay? JSONBeautifier.org is a free website. It's got some cute, ads here trying to get me to go to beaches. I'd like to go to beaches, so I'm on board. They'll pay for it. And now what you're going to do is delete it, and you're going to paste in that block, okay? When you paste valid JSON, you can say beautify, and it just breaks it up into separate lines, right? If you use like Visual Studio Code, it can do that. There's a lot of tools that can do this. For me, this was the easiest way that all of us could do, right? And there's a link to this website in the description if you need it. But now we can see, right? So this top one, that signifies JSON starts. This bottom curly bracket signifies the JSON's over, right? So that's the whole block. Then in here, we have a column called store list array. So I named it store list, and I added the word array to make this easier for us. And then you can see right here, you see where a square bracket starts there and ends there? So anytime inside a JSON you see square brackets, that means an array, right? When you hear array, think table. It's not exactly a table, but basically it's a table, right? There's an important delineation we'll see in a second, but think table of data. So then what do you have in a table? You have one or more records, right? So if you look then after this, so that's where the table starts. This to this, that is the record, right? And records, you're familiar with those for patch and stuff, right? You've used records before, but that is the record inside the table. That's the first row of that array. There is then a column for store name with Toso Cantina, city, state, revenue. Notice that revenue doesn't have double quotes around the 100. Why? It's a number. Only text things need text around it. Now, almost all the objects, so like date and times, they would have text or quotes around. Almost everything but numbers does, okay? So then you got a comma, so that means that row's done. Add another row, and then there's another row for Fabricant Foods. Another comma, another row, Tailspin Taters. Notice that there's no trailing comma here. If you put a comma here, it'd be invalid JSON, nothing's gonna work, okay? So this is a 3-row table, or array, I should use the right word. And there you go, it's over. So then there's a comma here. So that says inside this JSON, there's more columns. So the next column is a details record. Notice here that details record is also something different, right? So details record, and then right there is the record. So instead of being an array, multiple records, it's a single record, right? A single object. And then it just has columns for number of employees, and it's got some date columns so we can see how those work later. And honestly, like if in this JSON, if you wanted to have another record that was just name, I don't know, right? We put a comma there, and then it would have looked like this. It would have been name, and then it would have been a colon, and then it would have been buddy. And so that would still be well-formed JSON, right? So that's the first thing I wanted you to understand here is how to read JSON, right? Because I need you to kind of understand what's going on with it in order to use it. But now that you've seen it, now that you understand how to read it, let's switch back over to Power Apps and let's parse this. Well, except for the name buddy won't be over there, right? But now we want to parse this. So we're gonna go here, and I'm just doing it all inside of a gallery, right? Because I like the simplicity of that represents all that JSON. You don't have all the extra stuff in there, right? And the less stuff you're staring at, the easier your life's gonna be, but it has nothing to do with actually being in a gallery. So I'm gonna copy this, Control C, Control V, we'll paste this down here. Now for the complex JSON, how about the first thing we do is work with that details record. So to get to the details record, what are we gonna do? We're gonna put our ParseJSON again on here again, like so. And then we're going to close that. Now, obviously that's going to throw that error, right? We expect an error because it's like, I don't know what you gave me, but I did something with it. I don't know what it is. Then what you can do is you go here and you're going to say details record, okay? Right? Because that's the name of the column here, but we want the thing inside of it, right? The same way like in a SharePoint choice column, we have to go, column name dot value. So here, this is giving us the column name, and now we need to dot down the record. So we're going to do a dot. And if we look up here, right, we can see that details record, it has number of employees. So it will not auto suggest. We can't tab complete. We got to type it in. Got to make sure we don't make any typos. But look at that. That gives us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right? You can dot notate your way through this because the ParseJSON said, oh, I understand that there's stuff here. I understand the levels. I just don't know like what the data type is, right? Look, data type, untyped object. So like if we said that plus 3, oh, it figured it out. I wouldn't have expected it to figure it out, right? So PowerApps is trying to help, but don't count on PowerApps to type your objects. You do the work. So you want that to be a number, right? You throw value around it like so. Now it's a data type of number. So now you could use it anywhere you can use a number, right? So in math, you could use it to patch a number field, right? Get in the habit of getting the data to be what you want. Tell it the type so that you see the right word here. I can't stress this enough of you because sometimes PowerApps lets us get away with things like that adding 3 there, and a label would understood what I was doing. If I tried to add the plus 3 to that and then patch it, it would have been like, bah! Don't make it go, bah! Don't make me even make that noise again. Bah! I don't even know what that is. I'm sorry. Maybe they'll edit that out. I doubt I'll edit it out. Are you with me, right? We're not overthinking it. But this is why I loved, this was like, I spent like a day trying to figure out how to teach this to you guys. But by putting it all on the screen, it makes it a lot easier. So if I was trying to troubleshoot this myself, I would have it on the screen because I want to see that that is number of employees with a capital N, capital O, capital E, right? Like it's so easy if you did this, like, look, if we just change this number of employees to number of employees, lowercase, it doesn't error. It doesn't break, right? There's no warning. It just gives me nothing. You could pull your head out for a long time realizing that it was just that. Be cognizant of details. Details really matter here. What if we wanted to take, like, let's get this open date time out of there, okay? So we know, so let's just copy this, Control C, Control V. So we know that details record dot, right? And all we gotta do is just change this to say open date time, no big deal. Now that starts yelling at me, right? And that's because now I've got like a data mismatch. I'm trying to give it a date, but I'm trying to use the value function. So let's get, instead of value, what I want you to use is I want you to use date time value. So there's a date value function, there's a date time function, there's a Boolean function. When you're setting your data types, all the data types that are supported, there's a function to change them to that. But look, now it took this thing written in this crazy format and it spit it out as 12:25, 9 a.m. Kind of cool. Now you might be looking and saying, hey, Shane, that says 1400. That should be 2 p.m., not 9 a.m. Remember, this PowerApps knows is in UTC. PowerApps knows that I am 5 hours behind UTC, so it fixed up the time zone for me and got it to my time zone. If you don't want time zone math in there, go watch my video on time zones are hard. I'm not going to talk about time zones right now. Goodness gracious. No one's got the brain power for that right now. But know that you do have to be cognizant of that because it went ahead and fixed up the time based on the time zone of my browser. Yikes. Okay. But look, now you've got a date time value object, right? Date time object. And so then if we wanted to see that like in a prettier format, we could just throw the text function around that like we've always done with date times. And then we just go out here, go to the end and type in long date time like so, close our parentheses. And now we know that Christmas this year is on Monday, right? So Monday, December 25th, right? It formatted it. Right? The key was getting it to this date time value object. You guys know how to use those already. So that's always your challenge with ParseJSON. Get it to what you know. So we've done the easy one. right? Or well, I guess that was the medium one. Ready to do the hard one, right? So now the last piece that we have this puzzle is this store list array that is storing a table. Or no, so storing an array, we have to get it to a table. Well, important, Shane, say it the right way. Okay, so we're gonna come here, we're gonna copy and paste this one. And so now what do we wanna do, right? So we could start with this. So we know it's gonna be ParseJSON. Obviously that's mad. Now, if we do this, we should be able to type in store list array, still untyped object error message, but that's okay, right? So ParseJSON took some input. So now what we need to do is we need to wrap the table function around that. This will create a single column table, right? A table function, we give it that, will create a single column table with 3 records. And we can show that it did that by putting a count rows around it. And if it gives us a 3, look at that, it gave us a 3, we are in business, right? There's a little 3 right there. It's the same thing. It seems harder. It's got more moving parts. It seems scarier. It's not. Now, I do want to take a minute though. We'll go on a little side adventure, not a side adventure, a tangential adventure, if you will. And so let's talk about this table, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to insert a button in here because I want to put that table into a collection, right? So we know that this, oh, clicked on the wrong thing. We know that this gives us a table. So let's copy that. Let's go here. And then we're just going to say what? We're going to say clear collect whole table. And then we're going to paste that in and do that, right? No errors. Let's hold down the Alt key, press the button. Now let's look at whole table. Okay, it says it's a table. That's a good sign. And then if you hit the drop down, this might not look the way that you want, right? Look, it says value and then untyped. So what happened was, yes, it gave us a table, but the table function made a single column table with a column name of value, and then it put each row or each record of information into there. So we'd have to dot our way through it. We can, right? We can still use this just the same. Like, so if we go back up here, let's just copy this real quick, copy, paste. So if we go here and we change this to first, right? We know that first takes a table, gives you the first row. And so PowerApps is mad because we're given a record. And so if you do a dot, the first from the table says, oh, there's a column called value. But what is the value column, right? It's that untyped object. It's basically just that blob of information. So then what we could do then is say value dot, and what's the first field? Store name. And look, there's Contoso Cantina. It's still an untyped object. So then I would want you to put the text function around it. So you could get that, right? So that is a table, but it's an untyped table, which you're probably still going to be really uncomfortable working with. That is super fair. So what I want you to do is not be uncomfortable. So we're going to go down here. So now that we understand that that would have gotten us the information we wanted, what if we want to get it into a table the way that we know how to use table? Instead, what you're going to do is you're going to go here and you're going to use a ForAll. Okay, so we're going to loop through that table. So what's that table? Well, you know that, right? That is this right here. So copy and paste. And anytime that I use a ForAll, I'll always do is an as, and we're going to do a capital table here, right? That just makes it easier to know where we're at. And so inside the ForAll, remember ForAll just loops through each record in a given table and does something. We're going to create a collection. So we're going to say collect, real table. And then we know if we do like so and close that, that would close the collect. And then this would close our ForAll. Oh, I forgot to close the table. I did this in the practice run too, right? Go back here, add it there. Okay. So you got a table, you say as table, and then you're going to say collect real table. And this would create a blank record in there. So we'd create 3 blank records if we hit the button right now. We're not going to, but we could. Now what you're going to do is you're going to say, well, I want to have a column in there called SN, colon. And what do you want in there? I want text, and I want to do table. Oh, let's move my cursor out of the way. Dot value, because remember, that's that single column table. So table dot value, and then dot store name, like so. Close that. Okay, so now if you press this button, press the button, boop. Now, if we look at real table, look, it's a table the way you would expect, right? It's not funky. It doesn't have those weird things. That is just a normal collection that you know everything about already. So now you understand that works. So you go right here, you would just do a comma. And so we had city. So we'll just do a C for city. And then it's just that same pattern, right? Text, table. Oh, yes, capitalize things, right? Dot value, dot city. Close that, boom. And then of course I'll add state and revenue, or state real quick. So let's do that. All right, so that's what state would look like. You didn't hear me type all that. Now, what about revenue, right? It's a little bit different. It's a number column, but it's not really different, right? You just do a comma here. We'll do R for revenue. And then this time we would do a value around it. And what's going to go inside there, it would just be table.value.revenue, like so, right? We've already talked about that, so that shouldn't be new. It just was slightly different because it's a different column type. But now if we press the button, boop. Now if we look at real table, where's real table? Right there. Now look, we've got a real collection the way that you're used to using them, right? We went from their crazy JSON stuff, we parsed it all out. Now we got a regular collection. Now we can do whatever, right? Throw it in a gallery, use it in our own ForAll loop, use it with concat, use it with sum, whatever you want to do with the collection. That's just a normal collection at this point. We just had to hand shape it, right? That's the whole challenge of ParseJSON is we had to go figure out all those little details. We had to type in the things right. We had to set things to the right type of data. We did all the work, but high five, we got it. Okay, so now that you understand how all that works, right? Like now really, right, we know this is our table and this is the thing we cared the most about, right? So then now you could just come down here and so, pull this down here. And so remember, like if you wanted to filter this table, right? Well, what does filter want? It just wants a table, right? It doesn't care how you get there. So you could just go right here and use this table inside of a filter, right? Let's just make another one. So copy, paste. So we go down here. Right, we'll just wipe out everything other than the table, right? It's mad. It's a table, no big deal. Now we'll say filter that. So we'll just throw a filter around it. And what do we want to filter? We want to filter where the state is Ohio, right? So we would just say value.state equals Ohio. Right, still a table, and then we'll just still count rows around that table. And if it returns a 2, boom, we got it, right? Can we look up the raw data and see that we had a store in Ohio? We had 2 of the 3 stores were in Ohio. So it's a table. You can do this now, okay? All right, so I'm gonna quit harping on that point. So there's 2 big more things I want to do. I know this video has gotten long, but man, for the 5 of you that are still watching, you are learning a lot of stuff that took me days to figure out. So congratulations. One of the pieces I want to stress here is like where you might use this. So for example, if we come over here, I went and wrote myself a flow that hits the SharePoint REST API and returns all of the list in a particular SharePoint site, right? So get list action. Flow can't do that, right? And so in order to keep my flow from being premium, I said, hey, just return the raw JSON, right? Because if you respond with a table, right, then that makes the flow premium. But if you respond with just text, it makes the flow not premium. So I responded with all this garbage. Then I said, all right, copy. I went back over here to my JSON beautifier and I just paste all this in like so. And I said beautify and it broke it all apart for me. And then I was able to look in here and be like, all right, so look, there's a thing called a D, right? So that's the first object in there. So there's a D and then there's a results. So there's a D dot results. And then inside the results, it's an array. And in there are 3 records, right? One for graph documents, one for 3D model, and one for delete lists, try to, there's 5, not 3, I'm sorry. Anyway, so I could see the data, but now that I understood that that was all there, right? Just visualized it, jumped over here. So to count the rows, it was just table ParseJSON d.results, because that's the array that we wanted to count, right? So I turned that array into a table so I could count the rows. There's 5, that's what we expected. And if I wanted the first item, right? So first, and I took that same table, did a first on it, and then said, give me dot value. Remember, because the table itself returned the value column, so I did dot value and then dot title, right? Which is just right here, title. It's the same matching game that we just did. It's just with bigger, scarier looking JSON, but it's exact same work, okay? And so now if I wanted to find the specific title, right? We could do a filter or lookup inside there, right? Find the list that had the ID or the name of 3D models and then return me the list ID saying it the GUID. I don't know why you need that, but maybe you do. That's the idea. Don't be afraid of this stuff, right? And all I did was just call a flow that took the list JSON and set it there, right? Here, we'll just go show you the flow real quick. We'll say edit here, right? PowerApps my trigger. I just sent a request to that URL. So to get the top 5, I only want 5. Because if you get back all your lists and then try to show it on a label, it can kind of be messy. So I didn't want to do that. I just told what columns get back. And then I just responded with list JSON to body, right? So nothing complicated there, but any of your SharePoint gets, so get items, get lists, get any of that type of stuff, pull it in, use the JSON beautifier, figure out your JSON, and then you can parse away, and it's not a premium action in Flow. Last thing I want to talk about. So if you go look at the Microsoft documentation and you're not a rock star, it's a little scary, right? So if we go look at a text column, let's find text down here. It's like, hey, if this is your JSON, this is what it looks like, right? And I know I showed this to someone with intermediate skills and he was like, I don't know what's happening. Like what is all this double and triple quoting and like what is string field and all that? So their example's a little hard to follow. Here's the aha moment with that, right? So if we go over here, right here to this screen. So if you have a label, okay, so pause your brain for a second. And if I wanted to say, you know, my mom said, right? That's a text, you've done this before. What if I want to say that she said, hi, and I want to put it in double quotes like it should be, right? So my mom said, hi. But if I try to put double quotes around this, it freaks out because double quotes is how we signify text. How do you put double quotes inside of text? You use two double quotes. So if you do this and this, now look down here. My mom said hi in double quotes. So in Power Apps, when you're making a string, that's how you escape the string. Okay? So if you understand that, then now if you were trying to build JSON right here, right, what would it look like? It would be this curly bracket. What's your column name? So we'll just call it my column. I don't know, right? But we know that my column is going to have to be in double quotes itself, right? So you're going to go right here and you're going to say double quote, and then double quote, and then a colon. And then we're just going to say hi. So we're going to do double quotes again, hi, double quotes again, and then the then the curly bracket, and then the double quote. That gives us the JSON, my column hi. So then now you could do your ParseJSON practicing against that. Right, so you would do that, and then you would say dot my column, and you get hi. And then obviously we just to be complete, we'd put a text around that. Okay, that's same stuff you learned. You just had to understand where the double quotes came from. Because if you understand that, then if you go look at their crazy looking example, right? Let's just copy it. Copy, we'll insert our own label, and we paste it in. Look, they did the same thing. Just, I found that people were getting confused by this string field. Like, what's the significance of that? Nothing. It's just a column name, right? So they should have called it column named string field or something, right? They needed to make it even more obvious because these two double quotes, that's so hard to say, really were messing with people's brains, right? But now that you understand that, now you can go over here and have some fun with their examples. Right, their documentation's good. It got me there, but I had to have some base knowledge to get over that hump. So hopefully now that you've watched this video, you've got the base knowledge and you can use their documentation as well. All right, and that's all I've got for today. I know this was super nerdy. I know like 7 people are still watching. Once again, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Like it, leave a comment, right? Like tell people I got to the end, yay! It really helps, you know, me because I make these videos that I know aren't going to do well because for the 7 of you. If you have questions, comments, leave them below. Also, anything I can do to help, other ideas, right? Other nagging topics. Do we need to do more on JSON? I'm game. I've become very comfortable with it. I just had to kind of go and get my 10,000 hours of, you know, beating my head against the keyboard. All right. And with that, I'm going to say thanks and have a great day.